Patrick Mahomes has an open invitation to return to WWE. The three-time Super Bowl champion appeared on the April 29th edition of Raw and took part in an angle with Logan Paul and Jey Uso. Mahomes discussed his appearance during Thursday's episode of the Pat McAfee show, in which he said that it was awesome and even wished he would have gotten into the ring. Pat McAfee then told Patrick Mahomes that anytime he'd like to do that, the option is certainly available to him. Pat McAfee also brought up that the Kansas City crowd that night was conflicted because Patrick Mahomes aligned with Logan Paul. To which Patrick said, "That's my man Logan. I know he's not the biggest fan favorite over there in the WWE, but I had to try and help him out a little bit." Triple H then responded to Patrick Mahomes' comments on the show, saying he has an open invitation to return. Additionally, Triple H says the stakes just got higher for the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments. Speaking at an event in Saudi Arabia on Thursday, WWE's chief content officer revealed that the winners of the tournament will both receive world title shots at SummerSlam on August 3rd in Cleveland.
So I have an announcement on that. In the past, King and Queen of the Ring, it was such an honor to be in that tournament and to win that tournament on your own, to have that launch you to another place. But I wanted that tournament to kind of stand on its own, and I didn't want to announce this part of it until we got here. But I'll let all of you know that tonight that the winner of the King of the Ring tournament and the winner of the Queen of the Ring tournament will both go on to receive championship matches with the title of their respective brands. So they will both get world title shots, either WWE or world title, at SummerSlam.
And speaking of SummerSlam, SummerSlam is coming to Minneapolis. WWE announced today that its biggest event of the summer will take place over 2 nights in 2026. The event will take place at US Bank Stadium, home of the Minnesota Vikings, on August 1st and 2nd, 2026. Minnesota was a finalist to land WrestleMania 41 until the event was announced for Las Vegas earlier this month. The Minnesota Sports and Events president and chief executive Wendy Blackshaw had spoken to the Star Tribune and said they were told they did not get the event due to a change in direction by new ownership. However, she did note that they were optimistic that Minnesota would host future WWE events. Switching gears now, AEW head Tony Khan spoke to the media for an hour on Thursday to promote this Sunday's Double or Nothing. Here are some of the interesting notes. Tony said that when it came to who should fill the spot vacated by the injured Eddie Kingston in the Anarchy in the Arena match, he actually called Darby Allin to first see how he was doing physically. Darby then responded that he would fill in for Eddie Kingston without Tony Khan even needing to ask him, which Tony thought was a funny occurrence. He was asked about running the MGM Grand Garden Arena versus T-Mobile Arena for Sunday's show. Tony said the decision was about sentimentality, as the MGM is where they launched 5 years ago. He was then asked about being an on-screen character. Tony says he has really tried to limit his appearances on TV, which is how it should be. He wants the focus of the shows to be on the wrestlers and wrestling, even with the current Elite storyline. He was the only one who could lift the Young Bucks ban on Allin last night, hence his very brief appearance. When asked about the report on Mark Henry's impending contract expiration, Tony Khan says they have to look at that internally, but really likes him as a media personality and has a lot of respect for him as a wrestler. When asked about potential future residencies like they are doing with Summer Series in Arlington, Texas, Tony Khan said the city gave them a great deal in a great venue that was attractive. If other cities follow suit and this Summer Series goes really well, it could be a model for them in the future. When asked about moving All Out to a week later, Tony Khan didn't really give a direct answer, but said he wanted to make it a better experience for fans coming off of Wembley's All In. He also said Labor Day now has more competition than it did when they started, and felt it was a win-win to stay in Chicago and run in September. As we mentioned earlier, Darby Allin replaced Eddie Kingston. An update on Eddie: he could be out of action longer than expected. Eddie Kingston suffered not only a broken leg at New Japan Resurgence earlier this month, but also a tibial fracture and a torn ACL and meniscus. It was originally reported that he would be out of action for 9 months following surgery. However, Kingston told PW Insider that after meeting with surgeons on Thursday, He's learned he won't be able to get the surgery he needs until July at the earliest. This pushes his timeline to return back to May 2025. Eddie Kingston says he's been told he needs to wait for his tibular fracture to heal and do physical therapy before doctors can operate on his knee. The 42-year-old was injured during his no-ropes last man standing match with Gabe Kidd on the New Japan Pro Wrestling pay-per-view. He took a suplex through a table on the outside and hit his leg on the guardrail. Eddie Kingston took part in a post-match angle with Jack Perry and the Young Bucks, who would later take credit for causing his injury as part of their storyline in AEW. And, keeping with AEW, Stephen Borden might be following in his father's footsteps after all. Darby Allin told Fightful in a yet-to-be-released interview that Sting's son has been staying with him and training to be a wrestler. He's reportedly been sleeping in a tent set up in Allin's yard and training in a ring Allin has set at his house. Stephen Borden was Wolfpack Sting during his father's final match at AEW Revolution earlier this year. In February, Darby Allin told Digital Spy he'd asked Sting about his sons possibly training to wrestle, and Sting responded that they weren't interested. That did change for Stephen after he performed with his father and brother Garrett at Revolution. He told comicbook.com in March that his future in wrestling had become murky, saying, "I just always liked leaving it as my dad's thing. I never really had much interest in stepping into his world. I thought that was his thing. I would say it's mostly still similar, but that said, maybe in the last 6 months to a year, that answer has gotten a little bit more murky." Stephen Borden played tight end for the University of Kentucky in the 2013 and 2014 seasons. He's been the general manager of Saga Fitness since July 2021 and regularly posts fitness tips to his 12,000 followers on Instagram. And last but not least, in case you missed it, Sonya Deville has returned to WWE. Sonya returned on Monday's Raw episode in a backstage segment with new top contenders to the women's tag team titles, Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark. In the segment, Sonya Deville offered a handshake to Baszler and Stark and was on the verge of making a proposal of some sort to the duo. But Shayna rejected whatever Sonya had in mind without hearing her out. Sonya had been sidelined since last summer after suffering a torn ACL in a match on the July 28, 2023 SmackDown episode. Sonya and Chelsea Green were women's tag team champions at the time of her injury. Piper Niven replaced Sonya as a tag champ without the titles being vacated. In her time away from the ring, Sonya Deville got married and played a police officer in a movie. That's a wrap for this episode of The Latest. As always, please don't forget to subscribe to F4W Online, and I'll catch you on the next one.